Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beneath Vancouver Radio. Thank you for tuning in. If you're tuning in on any streaming platform, thank you for listening. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for tuning in on YouTube. This is episode number 67 of Beneath Vancouver Radio, and I'm joined by special guest Gabriel. Gabriel, how are you doing today?
Hi, very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Aaron. I'm really excited to be here today.
No worries. Thank you for coming on board. As I said earlier, 67th episode. We're almost there to the 70th mark. Hopefully we can hit that before the end of 2021. But I'm just going to jump right into it here. We'll kind of unravel a little bit more about who you are as a person, what it is you do, and kind of what brings you onto this podcast. So I'll start off with the very first question of Gabriel. Who are you today?
So my name is Gabriel Wong. I wear many hats. I guess I'll talk work first, and then we can dive into other fun stuff later. So I own a couple of physiotherapy clinics, WestCoast SCI, it's called. We have an operation in Vancouver, kind of main and Broadway area, and then one in Port Coquitlam. It was definitely not I was definitely not like a business-minded person originally, and it was a very organic kind of grassroots growth there. So that's kind of my work hat. Life hat, I'm married and I have a couple kids, and I wear that hat a lot. And I try to wear that hat a lot, and I think that's one of the things I really like about being, I guess, a business owner, self-employed, whatever, how you want to call it, entrepreneur, because it really allows me to have time to wear that hat and be a dad and be a husband and, coach basketball and do all that kind of family stuff as well. And I value that a lot. So having the ability to have some flexibility, I guess, with my time is super, super important to me.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, this is actually a very special episode, mostly because I would say out of every episode that I've had so far, you're the first individual that actually kind of would be sort of related to what I actually studied at UBC, which was for the long-term listeners, they would know that I studied kinesiology at UBC, but I'm not necessarily pursuing a line of work in that field right now. So for me, I love to hear kind of be able to finally bridge that gap of, as you said, the business owner, entrepreneur, self-employed, etc., and actually the kinesiology aspect of that as well. So we might even have some kinesiology listeners as well, right? Obviously within kind of my social circle. So kind of the first question, or kind of rebounding off what you just mentioned in terms of the many hats that you wear, how exactly did you get to, the business owner hat? How did you get to start wearing that?
Sure. I'm awesome. I didn't actually, sorry, Aaron, I didn't actually realize you were a kinesiologist.
Yeah.
In train, or I guess trained for schooling. I did my kinesiology degree as well prior to doing physio. We can get into that later if you really want to, how did this thing get started? So, there's a bit of a story to it, but I guess with long format, we can kind of get into a bit.
Yeah.
So I tried, when I went to physio school, came out excited about the industry and just the profession, and wanted to kind of hit the ground hard. I worked at a clinic, a big one of the kind of national chains that we have here in Canada. And I was excited by it because I'm like, oh, this is a big chain. It must be, a good place to work. And, I didn't really have much kind of understanding of what that meant at the time.
Right.
But basically I worked crazy hours. I had a big loan coming out of school. I was planning to get married. Obviously I'm a little bit older, but the housing market was still crazy back then. And so I want to save up for a place and this and that and this and that. So I did 60-hour weeks, Monday to Saturday, just kind of like, I didn't want to have debt. Basically was what I was trying to do, to change myself out of debt. So I worked, again, I don't want to throw these guys under the bus because I learned a lot working that much in a short period of time. I lasted about 18 months there. I call it like a turnstile clinic. Basically it's a high volume clinic. So if you can picture like a walk-in doctor office, you're just getting patients in and out as fast as possible. Not to say I'd have them in and out as fast as possible, because I would basically see them, quick check-in, how you doing? Here's a heat pad, here's a little buzzing machine. I'm going to leave on you for 20 minutes. I'm going to go off to my next person. If you need anything, ring this little bell, and then I'll be back. And then I buzz off to the next guy. Hey, Sal, how you doing? Like, you're back? Okay, cool. Let's check a buzzing machine, a heat pad on you. I'm going to go off to the next guy. And then, this and that, I'd give random exercise sheets. Like I had a back pain exercise sheet or shoulder pain. I just circle 3 of them. Okay, here, do these 3 exercises out in the gym. I have no idea what you're going to be doing, but just follow the instructions and the pictures. I'll come and check on you later. And then so I'd have, 5, 6 people going at any given time, which is chaos. Like you can't really provide great care. I was stressed out because I'm like always running behind, and there's 2 patients waiting for me in the waiting room, and this kind of stuff like that. In addition to that, I was running what's called an occupational rehab program. So that's injured workers that typically aren't able to go back to work for whatever reason. Right. So it kind of basically they exercise all day long trying to condition themselves so they can eventually go back to a job of some sort. I mean, some of the people there are great, fantastic. My team was pretty good, but it's a tougher population because typically it's people that have been injured for a long time, may or may not enjoy the job that they do. So they just rather exercise and like hang out and get paid. Basically, they obviously don't get paid full salary, but they do get a compensation to be at this program. So the population's a bit of a tougher population, right? So anyways, like I did that for a year and a half and just burnt myself out, just disillusioned by physiotherapy because I went to school for a while to do this, and I just felt like I was putting heat pads on people, buzzing machines. It
seemed very high tech or anything.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. It wasn't the experience I was expecting it to be.
Yeah. It's almost like the Shack commercial with the whole hot and cold patches back in the day.
Basically, that's what you're doing. I mean, like I said, again, I don't want to throw anybody on the bus, and I mean, people still unfortunately do that. It's how it is in certain places, but that wasn't for me. So I basically, after I got married and came back from my honeymoon, I'm like, I'm done with this. This is just not, I can't see myself doing this in 20 years kind of thing. And again, just disillusioned by what I thought that's what physio was in I guess in the private side of things. Right. So I was just like, forget this. I'm going to go work in the hospital. Not even I was still a physio, but I was working in administration. Like I was like, I want to take a computer desk job. Like I want to get far away from patients. Exactly. Yeah, totally. I just want to kind of, get a union position and kind of sit on a computer and kind of have, I guess, less chaos in my workplace. So I was doing that, and the role I was in, it was kind of like a discharge planning role. So basically, if somebody got into the hospital and say had a stroke, was unable to return home because prior to the stroke they're functioning fine, they're able to make themselves breakfast and get themselves dressed and get going. But after a stroke, especially a serious stroke, they're super impaired, and now they can't go back to their original home, or they can't get change on their own, or they can't make themselves food because they're paralyzed half their body or whatever the case may be. So kind of dealing with that. But at the same time, I worked with a lot of nurses, some OTs, physios, social workers and all that, because they had to help plan these people's lives, basically. Most of the team that I worked with was close to retirement. This is a job that typically people that have worked in the hospital, very physical stuff, would kind of finish their careers because, again, it's way less physical. They get to sit in an office on a computer, etc. So basically, they would say, I got neck pain, I got back pain. I've been a nurse for 35 years, and now I'm sitting on a computer, 8 hours a day. Yeah, my body is sore. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm a physio, and I got training to deal with this, and the kinesiology background, for that matter. I worked as a kin for quite a while, actually. So hey, I'll just meet you at the park across the street. I might do a little bit of stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna have a proper treatment area, but I'll grab a mat. I might do a little bit of hands-on stuff, but I think you just need to exercise. You need to get off your chair and move around and get some blood flowing through you. So I'm like, let's just work out, basically, but with in mind that I have some things in my brain that I think you could use in terms of like working your pain and deal with whatever shortcomings you have. So I started doing this just with a few of my coworkers and not really thinking much of it. And then they're like, is this physio? I'm like, I guess so. I'm a physio doing this. And I am using some of the skills I learned. But I mean, I was just exercising with them, really. And then they're saying that, well, if this is physio, this is the best physio I've ever had, because typically they're used to an experience like I was describing before, where you go into physio, you get a heat pad, a buzz machine, maybe a generic exercise sheet, and then off on your own. But you're spending an hour with me, and you're doing some really great stuff, cool exercise I've never really seen before.
Right.
So they're, after a while, they're like, well, I should probably pay you because, you're working. I got benefits through my, workplace. Healthcare workers get really good benefits. And then they're like, can I tell my friends? Because I think they could benefit from this. So next thing you know, I had a huge following. Like I was working more after work than I was.
Yeah, like 50 people at the park just kind of huddle around you. Just
it was crazy. People would stand and watch, like, oh, what's that guy doing over there? It wasn't super common back then for that type of stuff to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I said, well, winter was coming. Like, oh god, I got to find a place here to like keep doing this if I want to keep doing this. I had to get like a business license and figure out how to bill insurance plans and all this type of stuff. And so I did all that, and Work BC helped me a lot to kind of understand what I need to do and how to incorporate and all this kind of fun stuff. And because I eventually met people like in the condo buildings or the condo gym, or I'd go to people's garages or their houses, and then next thing you know, it just kind of evolved. I need a space, I need help. I hired some people, and
kind of scaling it almost, right?
Totally. And it was super organic. Like, it wasn't like I've got a business plan, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna open a clinic.
Very solidified. A 5-year plan. This is what I expect. Yeah,
it wasn't that at all. It was basically like a snowball that just kind of expanded. I still feel like I'm in that snowball. It's still rolling down the hill. I'm adapting to the things that come. So
was the first location the Vancouver location? I know you said you had 3, right? So
so I guess that's, like I said, originally I was renting space at a gym. So I'd find a gym that would allow this to happen, and then just basically rent, a room. But our first quote unquote location, it was again a gym. But they didn't have like an office really. I was using their broom closet as my treatment. So I had like a folding massage table in there. Yeah, it was nuts. I had a folding massage table in like a broom closet beside like the mops and like, the cleaning supplies and all this. The dark, dank room had this kind of like floor lamp in there. It was nuts. It was super
You're playing
crazy.
the role of receptionist and everything. And
for sure. Well, even back in those days, I was working in the hospital full time, still trying to do this on the side. And like during coffee breaks, I'd go into like the broom closet in the hospital and like answer, "Hi, Johnny, you want to book an appointment?" Or like dealing with like billing issues and stuff. It was like during my lunch break and stuff. It was nuts.
That's the definition, though, I think, of really like built like almost of finding out your I guess your passion in this case, but as well kind of working along with what you can, right? I think obviously a lot of people who listen to this podcast are probably in one way or another either interested, involved in entrepreneurship, business, etc. And a lot of the times people really like ask themselves of like, oh, like, I don't know how to, build I guess at the time you weren't even considering it really as a business, right? You were just, helping people because you really enjoyed it. And I'm sure other people have similar kind of paths, but with different, industries and different aspects of their life. But at the end of the day, you're still working your 9 to 5, I'm using air quotes. And on the side, you're also building like what is potentially going to, take over your 9 to 5 or be able to kind of leave that position. So it's great to hear. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that, and that authenticity aspect of it. They just see the glamour, especially now and with social media and everything, they just see, the cars, the watches, the houses,
right.
And everything like that. But they don't see you when you're, taking calls in the broom closet. Like, yeah. Can you, I'll fax that over right now, or I'll email that.
Exactly.
Whatever. So
totally.
That's the authentic part, I think, that a lot of people sometimes struggle to see. So, this is why this podcast exists, to hear those stories and to see where you started, right? In the park. Just
exactly. So. Yeah. Well, like I said, I didn't kind of plan it out very well. I think just kind of coincidentally, I stumbled across a book that kind of got me on this journey of reading. And like prior to that, I'd read because I had to, through school, and I'd read obviously, whatever kind of textbooks that they make you read, and I would not really venture out
too.
Yeah, exactly. I would never really venture outside of the course material.
Right.
But like I said, prior to getting married, actually, my wife was Catholic, so I had to do these marriage prep courses, which I was actually super reluctant to do because at that point I was totally like non-religion, like a super atheist type of personality. So I was like, oh man, I guess I got to do this if I want to marry the girl that I want to marry.
Prerequisite.
Yeah. One of the classes was about kind of finances and just kind of talking about money and stuff. So the book was Wealthy Barber of all
great
books.
book.
I forgot the title of the guy, but I know he's on Dragon's Den, I think.
Yeah, and there's also like a sequel to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Wealthy Barber Returns. Yeah,
exactly. So that was a book that kind of started me on this reading journey that kind of got me thinking entrepreneur stuff and building my own thing. But at that time I was living in Vancouver, working in Richmond, and this is pre-SkyTrain for those people that live in Vancouver. So I was on bus, and it was like an hour bus ride. So I would just read like a maniac. So I'd get through a book a week, which I actually am on that pace. I'm back on that pace now, which is really awesome. Good. During COVID, that was one of the things that I got back onto.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'd read any business book and marketing book, and even like what's the category? But
self-development,
self-help, self-development, self-help type books, psychology type books. But like I said, I just went on a crazy binge of reading, and that kind of planted the seed of maybe I could start my own thing.
Yeah,
was definitely never part of what I thought myself doing. While I was a student. I was definitely thinking I'm going to work for some place, and that was going to be my thing, and retire one day and hang up the hat. But things definitely changed.
I mean, for sure. I mean, definitely. Like I would say, even as I said earlier, with like the whole digital era, and even pre-COVID, things were already changing. But with whole COVID thing, I think it just like pretty much accelerated the timeline, tenfold. When it comes to the ability to, as you said, kind of figure out what other ways there are to make a living, whether it's self-employed or other just avenues through that, e-commerce, I guess in this case as well, like influencers.
Sure.
And I use that to term very loosely. But it's funny that you mentioned as well, like the reading aspect of it, because I was in very similar shoes with you as well. I'm sure again some of the listeners could probably relate, where I never really ventured outside of reading outside of course material, but it was actually one of, I don't know if you've ever heard, but for the listeners, they know that I'm a big fan of his. Went to actually just go see him recently in October of this year. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V.
Of course. Yeah.
There you go.
I know. I read a bunch of books from him too.
So I actually read Crushing It, and that was what got me started on this whole like, oh, maybe there's like something a little bit more outside of just like the schoolwork, the part-time work, and seeing what my interests were. So that's what kind of started this whole project. And, fast forward to almost 4 years later now, has allowed me to be in a lot of different positions and stuff like that. And, I never really would have imagined that like something as, simple again, as a book, right? You start reading at such a young age, would plant such seeds and really change kind of the way that you perceive life and different perspective and stuff like that. And, it's nice to be able to have someone else as well that can relate to that. And the Wealthy Barber as well. I read the second one first, actually, before the first one, but another great book as well. Both great books if you're interested in financial kind of literacy and self-development and stuff like that. I'll put them in the link down below as well for use my I think there's like on Audible as well, so you can sign up with that. But I guess fast forward to obviously where you are now with the different locations, and being able to sustain obviously and scale to where you are today. What has been kind of the biggest challenge so far now, as you kind of reflect where you were before, starting off in a park and, the broom closet, to now actually, having locations, having staff. What's been kind of like the biggest challenge now in the later stages? Oh, still very early, but in the where you are.
Well, today. I mean, I'm 11 years in actually now. I mean, since I quote unquote incorporated. So yeah, it's been definitely a trek, but again, I'd say maybe I'm a third through, half through, who knows? But I mean, there's a lot of different types of challenge. I mean, COVID itself was a real heavy challenge for us, as being a service kind of person facing industry. We pivoted to like a tele-rehab or a virtual kind of
I was gonna
offering. So we did that. It wasn't super successful. It wasn't as didn't catch on as much as I'd hoped, considering how doctors really went that way. And I do know a lot of doctors,
and everything.
There's a ton of doctor apps and things like that I think there's a handful of doctors that probably won't even go back into in person. I mean, depending on what type of practice they do. So I was hoping we would have picked up like that too, but for whatever reason, when it comes to physiotherapy, fitness, kinesiology, active rehab, people want to be in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the apps that they do have that are trying to do like a VR type of thing. I mean, I know that's pretty new, but for me, that the patients that we work with aren't interested in that for various reasons.
Right.
So I mean, when we did close down and we shut down for about seven weeks, I believe, like fully shut.
Mm-hmm.
We flipped to that. So I was thinking about doing this maybe 3-4 years ago. So I did doing like a virtual option. Technology wasn't great back then. It was a big hill to climb. So I'm like, what, I'm going to put that on the back burner. Let's focus on other things.
Mm-hmm.
COVID made us change that plan pretty quickly. So we pumped out a virtual platform and stuff in about 10 days, which I think probably would have normally been like a 6-month project.
Yeah.
So it's pretty insane. But again, the uptake from our clients was not very good. I think 15%, give or take, took on to it. And the other people are like, COVID was crazy at that time too. Everyone was freaking out and didn't know what the heck was going on.
Probably maybe not at the top of their mind is.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, my back hurts, but I need to live. Yeah, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I don't want to become a zombie or the zombie apocalypse is coming kind of thing. So my back can wait.
Yeah.
So they're just like, a lot of people just waited for us to reopen. We eventually did reopen, and slowly people trickled back in depending on their comfort level. But even now we still offer the virtual option, but I'd say maybe 5 to 10% are going that way. The people that like it love it. Like, it's so convenient. Mm-hmm. They don't have to commute. They could be in the comfort of their own home. For us, seeing them virtually is sometimes actually quite nice, because we actually can see the environment where they're going to be doing their exercises and that type of thing. So we can say, hey, see that doorway over there? That's a great place to do this stretch or whatever. Mm-hmm. Versus trying to show them in a gym on a piece of equipment that we have, but they don't, and you're trying to translate it to do it at home. So sometimes actually it's actually really good. And we do feel we can provide a really good service online. But again, just some people, technology, or they just rather have that face-to-face, which I appreciate as well. Like, I guess I'm old school that way. I do feel I connect with people better in person. But I mean, this Zoom stuff, I think, is a great second option for sure.
Yeah, at least having the option, I think, is the important part. And as you said, even though it's a small kind of percentage of your clientele, at least that clientele doesn't have to feel the need to like, oh no, I got to come back or have that flexibility. The fitness stuff online was definitely a big, I want to say big hit, because, well, it was really the only way for people to come together, right? The group fitness. We actually had someone at the beginning of this year. I think it's Cloud Athletics. I forgot their names off the top of my head, but it was actually 2 brothers that had started kind of like a group. Yeah. Sort of like a Peloton-esque group fitness thing. Just in their garage, right, and doing workouts and stuff, and they caught traction very quickly. Obviously, at that time of year as well, it's the New Year's resolution, and really, I don't think the gyms were fully open. If they were, maybe it was like it was still iffy, as it was back then. Not any vaccines were distributed to obviously where we are right now. So the group fitness hit on pretty well. But yeah, I think for some people, just being able to actually see in person who's going to be, working with you or working on you or whatever the case might be, provides a level of comfort that obviously virtual just doesn't really do that. And as you said, the connection as well, right? At the beginning of this podcast, we did all the episodes in person, right? So we definitely had to pivot, and I do miss those in-person episodes. But what was kind of like now as well, you said 11 years in, and you're only like a third or halfway, or how many years, hopefully many to come. What's kind of like the next steps for you, and kind of where do you envision kind of going now?
Yeah. So I think what we've determined, during even COVID, we kind of changed our model to a certain extent. So in the past, before COVID, let's just say pre-COVID, I was looking more for trying to get the same client coming like lots. So I would get a client coming in and try to make them is the wrong word, because obviously that's not what we're not about forcing people to come in, but having a person come like 20 times and just say, hey, we need to continue working on these goals, and without coming in, it's hard to reach those goals. Change more into, let's get you the information you need, empower you to understand how to deal with what you've got, and get you on your way. We'll get you on a program and work through what we need to work through with you while we have these sessions, but get you able to deal with it on your own as best you can.
Right.
From a business point of view, that was tough because I guess, obviously somebody that comes in maybe 5-6 times versus somebody that comes in 20 times, the financial rewards are very different.
Right.
But then we feel if we can get somebody better quickly and on their own, empowered to feel, hey, I can manage this back pain without having to, come in here 20 times.
Mm-hmm.
That person feels successful in terms of being able to deal with themselves, but also, hey, this is a really good place. Like I don't feel, attached to this place, and then without these guys, I'm never going to get better. And typically what that person would do is go off and then go tell their friends, go tell their doctor, like, hey, this place got me back within like a few weeks compared to like some other service, like chiropractor, massage or whatever, or even physio for that matter. But, I feel I've got what I need out of this in a relatively short time. I'm feeling better. And then typically that person will eventually bug them, wreck their back again, or they'll hurt the shoulder this time. And then they'll end up coming back. So that client that came in, 20 times might only come in 5-6 times, but then now they're coming back every 6 months or whatever it is to just get a tweak or get an update or progress their exercises. They're out there telling the world about, hey, this place got me back really quick from this problem I've been dealing with for so long. So we kind of pivoted a little bit that way, into more of a, let's say, I mean, again, we still do what we do, but we try to do it in a way that promotes kind of, I guess, I'm going to call it self-improvement, but just digging deeper into what their goals are so that they feel they can manage it on their own. Kind of easier said than done, but we feel it's a model that is not really what is common out there. Because most people, again, was similar to what we were doing before. Like if I got to this client, I'm going to put my claws into this guy and not let him go because, that's paying my rent. But we found as we've pivoted, we're getting a lot of new clients coming in. They might not come as long, but they're going to come back. And the satisfaction that they get, and like, the scores, when we ask, hey, give us some feedback, they're like, this is awesome. Like, I don't have to burn through, my bank here to kind of get myself back to where I need to be. And then they end up telling all their friends and stuff like that. So like I said, it's a model that we've kind of developed through COVID, actually. That's really, I feel, is something different than what most places are offering out there. At the same time, we have to do a bit of a longer session to kind of get into things a little bit more. So we can't do that in like a 20-minute session. Like we need typically a half hour, 45 minutes, even an hour for certain things. But like I said, you can get that in, let's say we see you an hour, but we only see you 5-6 times versus we see you for half an hour or 20 minutes, but we see you, 20 times. So we kind of pivoted a little bit that way. I do feel that has excluded some people because it costs a little bit more to come in. Obviously, we still I need to pay my staff still, and, pay our rent and things. So, our price point has gone up a little bit because of the longer sessions. So what we're trying to do, again, this is a new initiative of what we're trying to do is provide. So we're developing, I'm going to call it we haven't named it yet, but a chronic conditions course. So somebody that has, it could be anything from like fibromyalgia or like osteoarthritis, or it could be diabetes or, obesity, even for that matter, and offer, let's call it group classes, but have a significant online resource library where we have tons of information. So for a cheaper price point, you can do this option, still get a heck of a lot of information, still have some one-on-one time, do a little bit more group setting, but basically be able to capture both sides of the spectrum. So people that, are financially savvy, that do have the money to kind of come in one-on-one and do that. But if you're like, hey, I can't afford that, we have some other options for you. So we're trying to make sure that we're not letting people fall through the cracks, because we were finding as we did kind of move to this new model, certain people were kind of feeling priced out, basically. So like, we need to be able to provide something for these people, because we still want to be able to help as many people as we can, and we don't want to become some high-end exclusive kind of hoity-toity place. We wanted to make sure we can still provide care for average Joe out there. So that's something that we're in the midst of developing. It's a big process, because like I said, this online resource that we're trying to create is basically, we want to do a lot of videos and short kind of 2-minute videos, because we just find too long of a video is tough for some
attention
folks.
Span is a little.
And sometimes it's really detailed information. Like we want to talk about what is diabetes and how does it affect your your sleep and your mood and your exercise and all this type of stuff. So we really need to make this a pretty thorough platform, and that's taking quite a bit of time, but we don't want to just produce some half-ass kind of thing that people aren't going to find value. So we really need to develop it before we launch it, but that's kind of what we're working on right now.
Yeah, you do it well once, and you would argue, obviously, you wouldn't really need to update it, right? Because the information, I mean, should stay the same, right? So
right.
And that's good. I mean, obviously, the different or testing out different things from your competitors or from other people in kind of the industry is always a bit of a double-edged sword, right? On one side, you want to be different, but then at the other side, like that this works, or that, as you said, this kind of might be financially more effective or better for the company, et cetera. But obviously the biggest things and the biggest innovators and the people in the world that test out different things and stuff like that are the ones that went to potentially find out, oh, this actually works, right? So Steve Jobs and stuff like that. So hopefully that works out. And I think the big component as well with kind of, as you said, client facing services or businesses is also the people, right? Like your staff, yourself. And hopefully, obviously this podcast as well will show that, there's people behind, the business, right? It's not just people that are trying to, get you for your money, as you said, the clause and just be like, don't leave.
Right. Exactly.
And stuff like that. So, I think that's what a lot of the businesses are also sometimes missing, that more like relatable component, and letting people know, like, Gabriel, if there's his staff, etc., just people trying to love to do what they do, and then they're in the business for it. So I'm hoping and I'm sure that will work out, especially for the video stuff. I think that's pretty neat, having like a library and a bunch of resources there that definitely will help some people out. What's kind of now, with obviously being in business for 11 years and with what you studied in school, a lot of people obviously are starting to, start their own businesses and stuff like that without any more traditional like business background or knowledge. What would you kind of recommend to those people, besides obviously maybe like the books that you had said and stuff like that, for someone who's, tuning in and is like, wow, I listened to Gabriel's story and I'm really interested in, I don't know, like car stuff, right? And then they're a mechanic, right? And they want to maybe build or start their own shop. So what would you kind of recommend for that potential mechanic out there?
Sure. I mean, I just kind of thinking as you were talking, but I'm sure you read this one too, because it's a big book that kind of got me thinking. That Simon Sinek, I like that guy. That Start With Why.
Start With Why, yeah.
If you've ever read that one or not, if you're kind of still trying to figure out what your passion is and what drives you, that's a pretty good one to kind of hone in a little bit. So I definitely recommend something like that if you're just kind of getting started. It will just help you filter through a lot of things that you just do for the sake of doing versus what you're actually truly passionate about. Because it's not easy. There's definitely a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of stress that a person takes on when they want to start their own thing. So really make sure that's what you want to do, because if you 6 months, 2 years in, and you're kind of, holy crap, this is not what I expected. That passion is what's going to keep you going, right? Through the slog and through the bad days. So really make sure you try to find that passion. I would say, try to do what you can. I mean, depending on what it is that you're doing, as you do end up scaling and getting a little bit bigger. I was going to mention this before, but the human resources, building a team is probably the most challenging thing. That is a constant, I say, challenge, for the lack of a better description, that I deal with. Finding the right people. I'm going to kind of back up a little bit, but with COVID, my team looks, I wouldn't say significantly different, because we moved a few people around. But definitely there was some, let's call them people that didn't fit the culture, right? That we basically moved on with, and then solidified the people that were here for the right reasons, and have since hired a few new people that really fit the mold of what we're trying to do. And then that it is definitely more about compassion, growth mindset, it's that type of stuff. So it's really trying to find people around you that are probably better than you. Like, I definitely feel that especially with the leadership team, but not even like all my staff have something to contribute that I lack.
Right.
So trying to surround yourself with people that are better than you. And again, that's for me, that's not hard. I've got a lot of things that I work on constantly, and things that I feel like I'm not even going to bother working that because I don't have a passion or interest in that.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing on somebody else that does have an interest or passion in those things, and then they can lead those projects or lead that aspect of the business or whatever, right? So I think surrounding yourself with a good group of people is maybe the most important thing beside upskilling yourself. Bringing on a team of people that know what the heck they're doing and that are better than you at those things.
Yeah, and that's easier said than done, obviously, as you start your own business, and it's, for lack of a better word, your baby, right? It's hard to let people in and share responsibilities, tasks, etc., and be able to trust those people, knowing that, okay, they'll get it done, and at the end of the day, they're also probably will never be as passionate as you, and hopefully, because at the end of the day, it's your thing, but we'll be able to at least match that and be able to wanted to see it grow as well alongside of yourself and others. So that's I think that's super important and really good kind of advice there. Nearing the end of the episode here, unfortunately, but kind of just piggying back off what your answer was here for that, what kind of piece of advice would you give to your younger self then? To 11 years when you first started, 5 years, maybe even yesterday, who knows what the timeline is, that's up to you, but what would you share to younger Gabriel?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Aaron. I mean, there's so much different things I would try to tell myself. One, I think be patient. Like, don't expect, I mean, and that's just me, but I mean, things take time.
We're all ambitious.
Yeah, things take time, and let things play out a little bit. Don't feel you need to always rush to the next shiny object, because that's definitely something that I continue to work on, because you've got a million ideas coming in, either for myself or for my team, and not having to feel I have to jump on every single one immediately. So again, be patient. Live with grace. Just allow yourself to make mistakes, and mistakes are not necessarily a bad thing, actually. Like failure and mistakes, I've countless things I've screwed up and
learning opportunities,
fallen flat on my face on, because I pursued something that didn't work, but learning from that and making sure that you do have a takeaway from failures and mistakes, because they're the best teachers you're going to have. I mean, sometimes it's going to cost you a bunch of money when you make a mistake, and you're going to be super choked about it at the time. But after the fact, you can reflect on it and say, what did I actually learn from that, and use that moving forward so you don't do it again.
Right.
So I think that would definitely be something. I think another thing would be just finding time for yourself. So try not to get so caught up in the day-to-day tasks and activities, but making sure you schedule some time in for yourself. If it's daily, ideally, but I mean, at least a few times a week, that allows you to decompress,
unwind
reflect.
A bit.
Yeah, unwind, reflect on things, because I think if you're constantly moving forward and chasing that shiny object, you don't really reflect much, and then the learning doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I try to do on a daily basis. Even, I'm going to call it meditation, but I go for walks in the forest as much as I can. And while I'm walking, I might even just stop for a minute and just kind of think a little bit about, what did I do well today? What did I not do well? What could I continue to work on?
Yeah.
I mean, there's journaling stuff too. I kind of go in and out of journaling, but sometimes it's just me thinking. That's sometimes all it needs. But I see those three things is some advice I'd give myself in my earlier days. And even today, I gotta remind myself to do these things too. It's easy to say it, but harder to implement.
Yeah, no, for sure. And all those kind of three pieces were great. Journaling, just unwinding, being patient, and not being afraid to take a step back. Sometimes I think, especially we live in this world where we're, constantly distracted, constantly plugged in. I'm just going to do actually a quick shout out here to another book that I'm actually in the midst of reading, or I guess listening to. I'm a big audiobook fan. Is actually called The Happiness Track. I don't know the author's name. I believe it's Emma something. I might be wrong. But they have The Happiness Track. It's a great book, and it talks about the aspect of like being plugged in all the time, like being stressed, the ability of like you feel productive, but you're actually not productive, and stuff like that. So I think that would be a great book for, it doesn't even have to just be like, entrepreneurs or business owners, but even just like people who are even students or just kind of like doing their own thing and are, constantly feeling stressed at work or whatever the case might be. It's a great read to really be able to realize what it really means, potentially to be happy. Right. So great recommendation. And I'll put all the books that we've mentioned today in the description down below. If you're listening to the podcast version, or if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be down below as well. But yeah, no, Gabriel, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. I do give my guests like a 15 to 30-second little window here for any shout outs or plugs or whatever you might want. The stage is yours. So feel free to give some final words here for the audience.
Sure. I mean, talking about these online resources, we have a ton of stuff on our website, health stuff mostly, but I mean, a little bit of everything, workout videos. We talk about different topics. Again, typically it's injuries or some sort of health condition, but we have a huge library of stuff. So if you're interested in finding a little bit more about us, and if you've got an injury of sorts or a chronic condition of some sort, or your parents or whoever, friends that have these things, we got tons of stuff on our website, YouTube videos, etc. So check that out, WestCoast SCI. You'll find it if you type that into the search. You mentioned a book, Aaron. I was going to actually talk about this book throughout, but I never got a chance. But this is a book I'm reading currently. It's from the library. It has that library code, but it's called Nonviolent Communication. It's a real good one. I'm getting through this myself, but it's basically just trying to communicate better. Basically, it's called nonviolent communication, which kind of is a bit of a misnomer. It's not about violence at all, but it's about being a better communicator. And I think no matter what you do, if you're a business person or not,
communication is key.
Clearly is super important. And this book I find is very good. It kind of breaks it down step by step stuff, things to consider, making sure that you're voicing what you need as well, and not just always being kind of a punching bag for somebody else. That kind of stuff for me is super important. So anyways, I wanted to plug that book. It's a really good one. I'm quite into it, and I feel it's pretty valuable for other people too.
I'll put it down as well, as well as your website and all the other resources that you've mentioned. Anything else?
No, I appreciate the time, Aaron. I am always happy to do these things, and hopefully somebody got something out of it.
I'm sure they did. Thank you so much, everyone. I really do appreciate it. Once again, this was episode number 67 of Beneath Vancouver Radio. If you're listening to this in the new year, 2022, Happy New Year. Hopefully we all start off strong, New Year's resolutions, etc. We continue on, and hopefully you continue to listen to this podcast into this year and probably for the foreseeable future until I run out of guests, because I love doing this. So thank you so much, everyone. Once again, this was Aaron from Beneath Vancouver Radio. Thank you, Gabriel, as well, for your time. I really do appreciate it. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.